Lawmakers begin work in Tallahassee with committee meetings. That's the behind-the-scenes sort of work leading up to the legislative session in January. One of those key lawmakers is Jack Latvala, the senator who doesn't seem to hold back.
I'd throw her out of office. I'd suspend her tomorrow. I think what the House is proposing is basically unilateral disarmament.
I don't want candy like this to be out in candy dishes in people's homes where children can take advantage of it.
The senator joins us campaigning now for a promotion to governor, plus continuing controversy over anthems and monuments and law enforcement. The local research team sharing results from surveys in Northeast Florida on This Week in Jacksonville. Thank you so much for joining us. Governor Rick Scott will finish his second term and make way for a successor in the election of 2018, still more than a year from now. But lining up to run for that office, candidates you may or may not know much about. And this morning, we're visiting with Jack Latvala, a state senator from Clearwater and a man campaigning on a platform of, I read this on your website, straight talk, no excuses. What does that mean? Welcome to Jacksonville, or welcome back to Jacksonville, because I know you lived here a while ago.
I lived here back in the 70s for a couple of years, and happy to be back here today. My platform is basically the buck stops with the governor, and we've got a lot of problems in Florida that have been festering for years, and it's time to get serious about solving some of them.
So is that a critique or a criticism of the current leadership, the governor now, or his predecessor?
Well, I think every governor has their own strengths and weaknesses. Our governor now has been single-minded and has been successful in producing new jobs. He came into office in the middle of a recession, so that was the priority he picked, and he's done a great job of it.
Yeah, you've been in the Senate and out, and now back in the Senate, and obviously appropriations is one of the things that you're involved in there. So do you feel like you've worked in tandem with the governor's office there on trying to accomplish his priorities, or are there things that you've done outside of what the governor's office said?
Well, last year, for instance, the House of Representatives had a full-on frontal assault on our whole economic development framework. Enterprise Florida, Visit Florida, which is our tourism apparatus. And I was very supportive of the governor's position that we needed to spend an adequate amount of money and give an adequate amount of attention to those areas.
Yeah. Ultimately, much of that money went back into those programs after initially the House really holding firm on we're not going to approve any of this. Visit Florida, I saw even recently, check my notes here, yeah, just this past week, kicked off part of a $5 million post-Hurricane Irma effort, trying to draw visitors in from the state. Do you think that there is going to need to be more attention given to some of those tourism-related economic engines after hurricanes have hit Florida?
I think that in any business, you can't stop advertising. When you stop advertising in a business, you start dying. And those of us that have had business experience know that. Tourism is business for our state. It's our state's business. So we need to advertise. I was out in the Panhandle last week, and they said that they're still getting calls from people up north wondering if their hotels were damaged, and the storm didn't come anywhere near the Panhandle. So there's a lot of confusion. The Weather Channel had everybody pretty well convinced that the storm took the whole state over. Right. And you have to correct that.
Yeah. There were certainly places throughout the state, however, that did suffer a lot of damage. You saw what happened here in Jacksonville with the catastrophic flooding. What do you think that does for state priorities when it comes to the budget that you guys are going to be talking about in the Senate and the House when we get to the beginning of the year? Do we need to redeploy how we spend our money in order to help areas like Northeast Florida, South Florida, that were hurt by the hurricane?
Well, I think we were expecting a fairly tight budget year to start with, but one where we had adequate resources. I think with the storms, our margin is gone. The governor has, through his executive order power, has already taken $140, $150 million. That comes right out of the reserve. That comes right out of the margin. So we're going to have to be very prudent in how we do our budgeting and how we do our spending. I think that, of course, there's a possibility we could take some of those funds out of our reserve. It's called a rainy day fund. Well, it was a rainy day all over Florida.
You're right. Yeah.
So, we may make that decision. But, we have a lot of needs that have to be met. And, the appropriations chairman in each house, of which I am one of the two, that's makes our job exciting.
You said exciting. I'm hearing challenging.
Challenging, yeah.
One of the things that is very challenging is what we're doing as the state of Florida for our neighbors out there, Puerto Rico. I want to just talk about that a little bit. We saw a video this week as the Coast Guard and FEMA and the Army all delivering relief supplies in the wake of Hurricane Maria. A crews delivered 8 pallets of food here and water to this specific region we're showing you there. But as of going on the air today, some 80% of electricity customers still didn't have power. Majority of the cell phone antennas, they're still knocked out. And, just this past week, we saw that the President Trump was kind of getting involved here. He had a stern warning to Puerto Rico at one point. He said that America may pull back federal workers. The tweet was, "We cannot keep FEMA, the military and first responders who've been amazing under the most difficult circumstances, in PR forever." But then he also said a little bit later, the wonderful people of Puerto Rico and their unmatched spirit know how bad things were before the H's, the hurricanes. I'll always be with them. On the statewide level, Senator, do we have an obligation or do we have a desire to meet the needs that those neighbors of ours have in Puerto Rico?
Well, I think that we have a desire to help our neighbors. Just like we would help folks from Georgia or Alabama in situations that might occur. I think that we've got to be realistic if we're going to have an influx of population from that area, for instance, into our schools.
Right. That seems likely, doesn't it?
The state has to be prepared to help the local school districts compensate them for that. So there are a wide range of needs: social welfare needs, school, health care, that we've got to look at. I don't think we've got the sole responsibility to do that, just because geographically we're the closest. But they are American citizens and, our brothers and sisters, and so I do expect that we'll be helping them in some fashion.
Yeah. Let me ask you about this before we go. I told you that I'd ask you about why you're different as a candidate from some of the other folks who are going to be running here or already have announced. Let me ask you about this. There was a Tampa Bay Times article mentioning you when you announced your candidacy, and the quote was, they said, "Conventional wisdom has it that Latvala is too moderate, too much of a compromising deal maker to win a primary in today's GOP." Are you moderate? Do you feel like that's an accurate assessment?
I don't call myself a moderate. I call myself a conservative. I've been a Republican in Florida for well over 40 years. When there wasn't really a Republican Party in Florida, I was there. I've never been anything else. I've never done, really in my political career, done anything but try to build a Republican Party. But I think that we have to remember what an old school Republican is all about. And an old school Republican, which I categorize myself as, is someone whose number one precept is government out of our daily lives. Is individual freedom and government not being involved in our lives. Well, that's our personal lives, what we do and who we do it with. And that's our businesses. So, if people call me a moderate because I care about the environment, I just tell them, well, conservation and conservative have the same root word. That's right. So, I think what makes me different is, number one, I'm the only candidate on the Republican side who has any business experience. For the last 25 or 30 years, I've owned my own business, built my own business, employed hundreds of Floridians, paid health insurance for them, and so forth. Just because you're in the legislature doesn't mean you don't have a business. It's a part-time job. So I've been in the Senate but I've also run my businesses. And, you know, I'm running against a couple of guys potentially that have been in government their entire life, entire career, never done anything other than be in elected office.
That'll be a difference maker for you.
I think so. I think the nation, in electing Donald Trump, showed that they wanted something different than a career politician.
Senator, I appreciate the time and the chance to visit with you on this level. I know we'll get to see you again when we start up that legislative session, which is coming, and going to have some of those exciting times, as you pointed out. Thank you, sir. Well, UNF's reputation for public opinion research continues to grow. Mike Bender has a look at what Northeast Florida is saying when we come back on This Week in Jacksonville. But before we do that, how about this? How would you do on one of the 100 civics questions on America's naturalization test? Some constitutional powers belong to the state, so just name one of those powers. Bonus, by the way, what's a power shared by both states and the federal government? Answers for you in about 10 minutes.
The Ponte Vedra Boat Show. Huge savings on hundreds of boats for every budget. Cruisers, fishing boats, pontoons, ski boats. Ponte Vedra Boat Show. October 20th to 22nd. Palm Valley at TPC Parking. BoatJAX.com.
PIP stands for Personal Injury Protection Benefits. You hear it sometimes called no-fault benefits. When you've been involved in an accident, you have 14 days to seek medical treatment. And you have up to $10,000 of medical coverage on your insurance policy. That's the PIP benefits. If you don't get medical treatment within the 14 days after the accident, you lose all those benefits that you have.
Call us or visit our website, Harrell & Harrell. Don't settle for less than you deserve.
The 2017 Nissan Rogue, with available automatic emergency braking that could help stop for you. And motion-activated liftgate. You still got some tricks left in you. Take on today the Nissan Rogue family. Lease today, starting at just $159 per month, or save up to $10,760 on select models.
First Department 60-second Rotini.
Here we go.
Are you eating well?
Yeah, I'm actually making something right now.
New Barilla Ready Pasta. Deliciously al dente in just 60 seconds. Simply add your favorite ingredients and enjoy.
Amazing.
Hey, there you go.
I can almost smell it.
New Barilla Ready Pasta. 60 seconds to wonderful.
Elbow.
Oh, sorry, Mom.
This is a Hurricane Irma insurance alert. In the coming weeks, crooks and predators will be approaching you hoping to take advantage of you at your most desperate hour. Many will even try to take a portion of your insurance benefits, leaving you with less money to rebuild your life. Please don't let them do it. To learn more, visit hurricanelawyer.com and download a free copy of our Hurricane Bill of Rights. That's hurricanelawyer.com. Morgan & Morgan, for the people.
The Ponte Vedra Boat Show. Huge savings on hundreds of boats for every budget. Cruisers, fishing boats, pontoons, ski boats. Ponte Vedra Boat Show. October 20th to 22nd. Palm Valley at TPC Parking. BoatJAX.com.
The hottest football show in town is the Mark Brunell Show. We've been looking forward to this for a long time. Be part of an electric crowd at Sneaker Sports Grill as Mark and Cole break down the Jaguars all year.
We're going to have so much fun over the football season.
Each week, we'll give away some great prizes and answer your questions.
Tough question there. Right out of the gate.
Plus, you never know who will stop by.
It's your time to repay the loyalty to this fan base.
Mondays at 7 on CW17.
The Mark Brunell Show, brought to you by AC Designs Heating and Air Conditioning.
You're watching This Week in Jacksonville with Kent Justice.
A new poll from the University of North Florida finds people in Duval County are divided over the idea of removing Confederate monuments from public areas. 53% of those surveyed said they want to keep the statues. 38% want them to go. Poll also looked at how race affects the issue. 68% of white voters want to keep the monuments. 62% of black voters in favor of removing them. And the Jack Speaks poll, that also looks at approval ratings for Jacksonville's local leaders. 69% of voters strongly approve or somewhat approve of the job Mayor Lenny Curry is doing. City Council received a 50% approval rating. Sheriff Mike Williams, 67% approval rating, while 55% of the respondents approve of the job State Attorney Melissa Nelson is doing. So where does all this information come from? It comes from the UNF Public Opinion Research Laboratory. That's the baby of Dr. Michael Bender. Appreciate you being with us. It is a little bit. I just needed to make sure I got it out right. You founded this. You really created this here just a few years ago.
Well, I don't want to take full credit for it. Matt Corrigan is a founding director back in 2001. Then it went dormant for a couple of years. And when I came on board back in 2011, we started to bring it back to life.
Yeah, Dr. Corrigan is a terrific resource for us as well. And what you do at UNF in terms of trying to bring together what students are learning and what we can learn from the population. Tell me a little bit about some of these recent poll results, and let's start with that monuments issue. I just kind of gave some of the overarching viewpoint there, but you guys really drilled down to find out how people are responding.
Right, and this is unsurprisingly one of the more contentious issues here in Jacksonville and across the country at this time, at least in the South anyway. Yeah. Talking to my parents the other day, my dad says, "Oh, I didn't even know Confederate statues were an issue." He lives in Jersey. Yeah, there's not a lot of Confederate monuments up there, but this is the type of thing that really gets people excited on both sides of the issue. Some people are very offended by it. Yeah. Some people are offended that they're taking down our history. So it's a difficult issue to come to consensus on. Yeah, and not surprising at all that there was maybe some difference of opinion based on the race of the respondents. Right? Race and partisanship as well. Republicans are very opposed to changing or moving anything with the statues, as are whites by big numbers. And on the other side, Democrats and correspondingly African Americans think that these things need to be moved and go, either taken down entirely or maybe put into museums, but maybe not out there in a public square professing that this is who we are. Was this on the radar for the lab to take a poll on prior to what happened in Charlottesville and then the comments by the city council president in Jacksonville? Obviously what's happened in the last couple months drove this. This was not something that I was sitting around in June thinking, in the fall, what are we going to ask about? This was just something that with Council President Brochet, when she came out and said that, I thought it was something that we needed to know about because there was so much attention on the flamethrowers on the left and the right about this issue. We needed to see where everybody stood. Yeah, another kind of contentious one is what happened just a few weeks ago with the national anthem. NFL players across the league, the Sunday after on a Friday when President Trump said anybody who kneels for the anthem should be, thrown out of their job. Some 200 players kneeled or in other fashion protested while the national anthem was being played. What were the responses there when you looked at that issue? Again, this is another one of those issues that was split by partisanship and also race. Democrats and African Americans indicated that it wasn't really affecting their viewership or attendance at games, while on the other side, Republicans, it definitely indicated they were less likely to go to games and less likely to watch. The interesting part, and there might be a little bit of a disconnect here, is Shad Khan's approval ratings as owners of the Jaguars are at 65%. I mean, that's a little bit of a disconnect. But by and large, when you average everybody out, most people said they were unaffected by what was happening, at least as far as their attendance and participation in football. The other part of that graphic we showed at the start of our segment was about some of the opinions on how local leadership is doing. Now, I didn't read that the results were, hey, this person, the sheriff or the mayor or the state attorney or the council is at 20%. Right. Is this a good sign? What does it mean when we see numbers like that on approval ratings for local leaders? Well, I think there's a couple things to look at. And you briefly mentioned Melissa Nelson's rating at 55%. That's a little misleading because 30% of the people that responded didn't have an opinion. Her disapproval numbers were just as low as everybody else's, just more unknowns. I think this tells something. One thing is, compare this to what happens in D.C., where Congress is in single digits and the president's at 30% and things of that nature. We're much higher. I think that's good for the city that we're pleased with the job that our leaders are doing. So I think that's a positive. And what's really fascinating is this cuts across party lines. Curry, Williams, Melissa Nelson, all of their support comes from both Democrats and Republicans. So when we sit here and talk about the divisions on the statues and on the NFL, it's not on everything. They think our leaders are doing a good job. They all think crime is the #1 problem that's facing our city. So there's
that's
not
a recurring
everywhere.
theme, isn't it? It seems like every year you guys do the poll. That's what
three years in a row. Ever since the economy's come back to life, and that's taken a step back, crime has been a driving concern here in Jacksonville, and unfortunately, that's something that we have to take care of. Even if it's just perception, it's an issue that needs to get addressed.
Yeah, I think it's something the mayor and the state attorney and the sheriff and city council all have to realize.
Every single local race in the last 2 years has been focused on crime, and for good reason.
Yeah, all right, so our last 30 seconds. What's next? You guys are looking at something soon, right?
We're always looking at something. Next week we have some statewide data on guns, open carry, campus carry, assault rifle bans, opinion throughout the state. And then the week after that, we have a much bigger release on a variety of state policies, and including the Senate race between Nelson and presumably Rick Scott.
Presumably Rick Scott. We just had an official candidate for governor in the previous segment. There are some other presumed candidates that declared candidates are going to face.
It's election season already.
That's what I was just going to say. Our election is more than a year away once we get to November 2018. But really appreciate the insights, and obviously we stay connected because we want to know what people are talking about and what they say is important.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
All right, thank you. Well, stay with us. One more segment, and we're going to talk about the Pioneer taking control at Jacksport. We want you to meet Eric Green. That's next on This Week in Jacksonville.
I'm Robert Palmer, president of RP Funding and owner of the Jacksonville Armada. Interest rates have unexpectedly dropped, creating an opportunity to lower your monthly mortgage payment. You can take advantage of this huge potential savings by refinancing with RP Funding, and as always, I'll pay all your closing costs. I've paid over $20 million in closing costs for homeowners just like you. So now, let me pay yours. Go to rpfunding.com or call today. Go Armada.
Breaking news. Reports of 2 bank trucks hit in the last 24 hours. More on this story as it develops.
This didn't crash the Camry. Why didn't we crash the Camry?
I tried. The car just stopped by itself.
Fine, we'll do it with special effects.
Oh, so that you'll do with special effects?
Get 0% APR for 60 months on a new reinvented 2018 Toyota Camry. Toyota, let's go places.
Visiting the Golden Isles is an opportunity to see in through a lens of extraordinary biological diversity. The tidal salt marshes are one of the most remarkable wildernesses of the East Coast. We can go paddling in the salt marshes and never see another person.
To be able to get out on the water and see dolphin, see shorebirds migrating up and down the East Coast, and to experience all of that in one package, to me, is what makes this place so special.
Hope starts with one of the best children's hospitals in the country. A place with world-class specialists and cutting-edge treatments. Hope starts with Claire, with Christian, with Connor, and the thousands of children a year that depend on Wolfson Children's Hospital for life-saving care. But as a not-for-profit organization, Hope also starts with you. To support Wolfson Children's Hospital, please visit hopestartshere.com.
Me and you just singing on the train. Me and you listening to the rain. Me and you sitting on the lawn. Me and you just singing our song just to rhyme, to shine and to pass the time.
Step up to GMC and get $12,000 total value on this specially equipped 2017 GMC Sierra SLT model. We are professional grade GMC.
Mr. Gord, do you take trades?
Gus, I take trades of all kinds. Campers, cars, boats, lawnmowers, you name it.
If we can put a cash value on it, you can trade it.
Sign up for the First Coast Heart Walk and raise money to help the American Heart Association fight the #1 killer of all Americans. Register at firstcoastheartwalk.org and meet us November 19th at Metropolitan Park.
And here's the answer to our citizens quiz that we gave you a few moments ago. Some constitutional powers, that is, belong to the states. What is one of those powers? Here's kind of the list. It's providing schooling and education to provide protection, like police, provide safety, like fire departments, approve zoning and land use, to give a driver's license. So here was the bonus question. What's a power shared by both states and the federal government? We'll go with the most popular answer. A little sarcasm there. The ability to tax people. Ouch. Jacksport is Florida's #1 container port and the nation's second busiest vehicle handling port. It plans to keep growing. The port has a new chief executive as well, Eric Green. He's made history as the first African-American CEO of any port in the nation. 4 years ago, Eric Green had a vision to become the CEO of Jacksport, but not for the title or the pay. He loves Jacksonville, and he wants to see it grow.
My standard is a little different. It's not about if I fail my friends, I failed the community, I failed a place I love, I failed a place that I grew up.
Green is leading Jacksport into a period of growth when the channel deepening project begins in December.
As we're improving our docks to be able to take advantage of our deep water project. So it's sort of going hand in hand.
The federal project will deepen the Jacksonville shipping channel to 47 feet. That should accommodate more cargo aboard the largest ships. Green says this project will increase jobs in trucking, distribution centers, and stores.
We are beginning to touch every life aspect of life there is in this community. And not just Jacksonville, but it's for the entire region.
The Port of Jacksonville imports and exports a diverse amount of cargo, from vehicles and paper to refrigerated cargo as well. And the impact reaches as far away as Asia. Green says he's also deeply connected to the community because it's the one he's loved his entire life. Green graduated from Ribault High School, attended college in North Carolina, then quickly returned to be a public servant in the Jacksonville community in 1988. As a new CEO, he hasn't had time to celebrate either. He's focused on work, and that includes assisting the ships taking aid to Puerto Rico. Even on a normal day, Jacksport sends 85% of all the goods used on that island. And though he's making history as the first African-American CEO of a port, he says his hard work transcends race.
I think being the first African-American is a plus. I think it means a lot to my community, but I want to be looked upon as doing the job and being rewarded for doing the job.
A job that he worked tirelessly for to serve the community he calls home. I've gotten to know Eric Green over the last couple of years. Excited for him in this opportunity. Green's contract should be official in just a couple more weeks, and he says he's looking forward to the expansion of the port in Jacksonville. This Week in Jacksonville airs each Sunday morning at this time. The Sheriff's Office and a domestic violence shelter in St. Johns County, they are partnering to change the dynamics of abuse. Invest members are going to join us next week. We're also examining the 25th anniversary of the Small Business Resource Network in our area. I'm Kent Justice. Thanks for watching on air on Channel 4 and online at news4jax.com.
Ever before, more people get their news from News 4 Jax, Jacksonville's #1 source for local news.